Every time. It doesn't matter.
There we are.
No matter how much prep or like, I'm like, all right.
There's always something. Of course, we're still in summer session, as
That's right.
video watchers will know, because I've still got my shorts on.
That's right.
I haven't got the black t-shirt on yet. We'll know that the semester has started when.
That's right. Which I do love that you have this like visual indicator. It's like, right. I'm like, what? Has the semester started yet? I'm like, nope.
Just check what I'm wearing. Yes.
Is Andrew in black? Nope. Then we're good.
Of course, that has very different connotations. Yeah, we're in mourning from the end of August.
Oh my goodness, that is it, right? You're like, oh, it's all finished.
Students back, classes in,
traffic, the whole everything. You know, there is that. I mean, I realize not that many people can relate to this unless you happen to be on or work with like a university or whatever. But there is this glorious period where for like, just a few weeks over the summer typically, or even over any break, where like all of the crazy hustle bustle just kind of quiets. Yeah.
It's actually beautiful on campus.
It is. Yes. And all of a sudden you see things differently.
Yep.
You're like, I mean, that's even one of the things I've been meaning to. I mean, the danger here is the heat, but also the UV index. Cause I'm like, I really want to bring my camera on campus. Cause I actually, one of my favorite times to photograph like a portrait of a university campus is twofold. One with, of course, people, but also when you're just trying to capture like the architecture.
Sure, yes.
It's so much better when there's no people around.
Well, it helps, yes.
Yeah.
Well, but with AI these days, you just raise the people.
Oh, that's true. Yes, you do that. But also I'm like, what is that going to look like? You're like, look at this beautiful architectural thing with little smudges here and there.
That's right.
Where there was, where once a person.
AI has just guessed what is supposed to be in that space.
That's it. Well, that could be an interesting thing. You're like, this is what I see.
Yep.
Also, like, change it. Like, what should a university campus look like? And just,
that would be such a cool exhibit. Sort of the ASU of the imagination, where you actually take those real photos and you just get AI to sort of change it.
Yeah, well, it would be cool because we've spent. I say we. I mean, like people, not necessarily you and I, has spent a lot of energy on like these concepts of digital twins.
Right. Yes.
Which on one layer you're like, okay, that's cool. Like we can take something like a physical campus and build a one-to-one twin of it in a virtualized environment. But I'm also like, but that's in some ways, and that has its purpose. But I'm like, let's go beyond that. If it's in a virtual, especially if it's in a virtualized environment, let's try out some cool stuff.
Imagine the future.
You know? Yeah. Like why?
It gets a little bit tricky with ASU's digital twin in particular. And we have a digital twin that sort of manages it predicts and manages all the systems here. You start playing around with it. And all of a sudden the classrooms don't open on time because that's not what our future looks like.
Why can't you have a spherical building? How does one
the heating and cooling?
There's like a pulley system to get up into the top or something, what could possibly be, go wrong with that?
This feels like a class.
That's actually a really good idea. Yeah. I like where this is going. Speaking of things where I like where they're going.
Yes.
Massive shout out to our listeners and watchers of our podcast of Modem Futura here. Massive thank you. I mean, as every creator does in this space, we continuously ask for more support.
Right.
But I was really excited. And again, contrary to how it might sound, I don't check the stats all that often because it can be.
He does.
You can't see what's on my screen right now. It's always anytime. It's like looking for reviews. It's always a double-edged sword. You could see 100 positive things in that one comment.
I know. There's never enough. Yeah, but it is important because we don't just do this because we enjoy chatting. We do enjoy chatting, but actually there's a much bigger purpose about translating what is happening in our world to a much, much bigger audience.
Yeah, we literally only, I say literally, we'll see. Someone can quantify, we record probably 1% of the conversations we actually, you know what I mean?
Right.
So we do love talking, but I wanted to raise this because, again, massive shout out to all of our listeners, viewers, and supporters who have helped make this possible. And as a continued call to help us do this, as of earlier this week, and I checked today, so as of July 31st, now these lists, we made the top of podcast lists.
Okay.
All right. Now,
I don't know these figures. So this is new to me.
So these are really fun. Now, they all come with a massive caveat, which is these are very liquid. They're very moving.
Right.
These aren't like the hard categories, like number one podcast in science and technology.
Not number one in podcast where sort of Sean and Andrew hosted.
Right.
Amazingly, we're number one.
Funny enough, if you put in our names in there, sometimes Modem Futura is not always the top one, depending.
That's not good.
But we are the number one podcast result through Apple Podcasts. That's the only directory I was using to pull these on the futures of agentic AI.
Oh, wow.
So we were the number one podcast episode and the number two podcast show having to do with futures of agentic AI. Now, next week, or by the time you listen to this and you search it, it might no longer be the case. These are very fluid, but
we're getting there. But it's also nice to see the figure. So I was actually posting on LinkedIn today where we're seeing that uptick in the number of people that are listening to us, which is really gratifying because again, this is what we do. We do to connect with our audience.
Yep, absolutely. And that's a huge piece. And again, coming back just to the origin of Modem Futura, I mean, that's the big piece here, right? Is that it's not about growing the audience. The audience helps get the information and the message out.
Yes.
And that's the point is community. I mean, even from day one, that was the idea is like so many of the conversations and the topics and the things that we talk about are traditionally very difficult to come by in terms of you have to have, a lot of academic access to things like journals and papers and these silos and these communities that sort of do speak about some of these things, but often don't make it to the general public.
Yeah.
And that's a big piece.
And so this actually feels a bit weird talking about this sitting in a university. It also feels like this is a little bit like sort of an NPR fundraiser drive, which I desperately hope it isn't. But
I still got that bucket for stablecoin. You want to send us some stablecoin?
It constantly blows my mind that we're here. We are two of the leading experts in our areas. Yep. We get invited to talk all around the world. Our students here who have to pay to come to ASU get the benefit of this. And I dislike this because I really feel that knowledge and information and insights want to be set free to benefit society. But the fact that through this podcast, we can make the stuff that other people pay good money for free and as easily accessible as just switching to your podcast and pressing play. And that's really, really important.
It is. It is a little, and I know for both you and I, it's a little hard to be like, it's hard to self-promote in that way, even though we're probably doing an okay job of it at the moment. But it is important because there has been times where, people, colleagues, not here at ASU even, but just around the globe have even mentioned or graduate students who have come up and they're like, this is like a doctoral seminar for free in my ears. That's actually enjoyable to listen to that I can take with me.
Yep.
And that's tremendous. And people, telling
you're putting our audience off again. People are thinking, the last thing I need is a doctoral seminar in my ears. No, it's much more fun. Believe me, I have not been to many doctoral seminars where we have so much fun and laugh so much.
I was going to say, I think also what we're doing is changing perhaps setting the bar higher for how these doctoral seminars should be.
You're right, yes.
We should add a little levity and some humor to that as well, because my goodness. Awesome. Well, maybe that's enough
we should move through to the actual program.
Let's do it. Let's take a quick break.
Initializing waveform.
Modulating signals for transmission.
Exploring the possible, probable, and preferable futures.
Welcome to Modem Futura. All right, Andrew, thank you for joining me on yet another fantastic episode of Modem Futura. And so, I feel like the question I have for us, and maybe I should have left this in the cold open, is how long do I continuously say the opening phrase of Modem Futura? Do we need to make it a year?
I think you need to keep on saying.
Keep it on forever?
Because you never know who's going to be listening.
That's true. Yes. So for our growing amount of return audience, you'll know this statement well. For those of you who are brand new, what exactly is Modem Futura? Well, it is the show that explores the intersection of technology, society, and the possible, probable, and preferable futures, asking deep questions like what does it mean to be human in the future? With some, That's the question we will continuously come back to.
Yes, which never gets old.
It never gets old. And I feel like one of the big pieces right now that just that question set amongst the backdrop of all of the AI I'll say just insanity, because there's so much moving, there's so much hype.
It feels like that, doesn't it? And so we were talking before the show about, are we doing too much AI? And thankfully we've got a little bit of sort of variety here, but you can't get away from it at the moment. It is the big thing, whether it's the hype or the game changer or just the chatter.
Yep. And I think that's a big piece, is that alone. In some ways it's becoming increasingly, and I would say in just absolutely challenging to try to escape it.
Yep.
And one thing we've talked about before as well is that even if somebody is out there listening or watching, or someone in your family who's like, don't worry, it's not going to affect me, I don't use AI. It is affecting you. It's going to. It is already. Maybe not. You may not see that impact directly, but it's going
to be there.
It is even at present. I mean, it is being woven into the fabric of everything that we do.
And of course, this comes back to that question of what does it mean to be human? Because increasingly these AI systems, I forget about sort of AGI or AI that may one day sort of know itself become sentient, which may or may not happen. The fact that we've just got these machines that emulate what we do as humans now is profoundly challenging to our own self-identity. And it's actually an increasing part of my work at the moment, trying to thread the needle around what it truly means to be human, where machines can do so many things that we think of as being human.
Yeah. And one thing just on that thread too, I mean, this is also an interesting time in the tech world, because all the quarterly like earnings calls have come in. So all like the big tech companies like Apple and Meta and, Google, whoever, this is the time where they have to get on these earnings calls which is of course for investors in the stock market and all that kind of stuff. What was interesting, I don't know if do you happen to catch the news snippet out of Mark Zuckerberg's?
I didn't. I saw people talking about it. I didn't hear it.
So there was a video, I actually watched it, which is just like he's just looking right at you, and I'll be honest, at first when this video was playing, I was questioning whether or not this was a legitimate video.
Really? Yes.
I mean, and maybe that says something too about just like the PR training, sort of like the kind of very still, not very much movement, whatever. So at first I was like, is this even legit?
How many times did he say delve?
Well, I was watching. Well, actually, this is a piece too, right? Like, again, with the new advancements in these tools and the complexity of being able to pull off these things is in this video, because it's just a talking head of Mark directly into the camera. Talking. One is I watch their eyes very closely, and I'm watching for a couple of things. One, I'm looking for the jitter of them reading the teleprompter.
The scan across, yes.
Which they always do. And humans, like, if you've ever watched someone, I did this experiment, a long time, this 20 some years ago, did a very close-up watch, like video back in the day. We would use videotape, but someone's eyes as they read. And it's fascinating. Because originally, you assume, at least I did, right? There's a misconception that you think that your eyes read smoothly across the page.
Jitter,
and they jump. And they go crazy, which also, I mean, long story short, gets back into even the word read, which is based on radon, which means to guess. I mean, it's all beautifully connected.
Right.
But so watching for the jitters, which was there, and also just, you can tell someone's reading a teleprompter, but also looking at the reflections. Looking to catch ring lights or
did a big zoom into each individual eye to have a look at the room beyond. I
finally can use these commands. Computer, enhance.
This is the difficulty with 4K and 8K. You can see everything.
But this only works right now. I mean, it won't be long before even those tells could be artificially generated as well. Like, because I mean, they'll put in catch lights, but you can tell the type of light it is if you can work out the shape and all. Anyway. So watching this thing, there was a lot buried in there that as this thing was going, I mean, it was triggering me in all kinds of ways, because I was just like,
Have we got to the content yet? This is just the video still.
This is the video. But it was layered in there because it's all about essentially sort of Meta's, like, their push towards artificial intelligence, but also in terms of like their viewpoint on how people are interacting. Now, if our viewers and listeners will remember, a while back, we did an episode where we talked about synthetic users. Meta through Instagram and Facebook and things like that.
These there.
They have been, and not even secretive about it. I mean, very open that they are producing and deploying. And I built one. You can build these synthetic users, and it's interesting because they are there to communicate with you, to stimulate interaction and keep you in these platforms. So one of the things, so this is playing on the background right before this line comes to me, was that they're trying to change and shape the way people interact and to give it was kind of under this guise of, we're going to let machines do all the hard things so that you can have more time. And the whole time I'm sitting here going, what
are the hard things here though?
Yeah. And I'm
communicating?
Like, yeah. They're like, we're going to leave the fun things to you, but yet we're going to, and I'm like, but I feel like every time there's a promise of that, you just end up working more. And the whole time I'm also like, and what is the work-life balance for the programmers at Meta? I'd be curious.
Right, yes.
But the quote was this, and I wrote it down. I pulled it here, so I have it. The quote is, over the last few months, we have begun to see glimpses of our AI systems improving themselves.
Yeah.
And then with the follow-up quote, the improvement is slow for now, but undeniable. Developing super intelligence is now in sight.
Yep. So, but interestingly, there was a paper the other day on Archive. So remember, these are not peer reviewed. That was looking at a new architecture, a self-improving architecture. So this is definitely coming along. But at the same time, the hype.
Yeah,
it's almost as if with these companies, they've got to be promising AGI, artificial general intelligence, for their shareholders, because that's what everybody is after. Yeah,
and what struck me about that one is, of course, I mean, part of that when you listen to someone say these things, is you're like, well, show me the receipts then. Like, let's see.
But nobody knows what it looks like. No. I mean, increasingly, AGI is what you define it to be.
Exactly.
So you're basically putting the arrow in the wall or the dart in the wall and building the target around it.
Yeah, and then when you go, that is a little far away, just pick it up and move it closer and drop it down and do the same again. Because I mean, that when we were talking on the two, I guess it'd be like two episodes ago, when we were kind of going after OpenAI with all this stuff with the agent mode. But it's a similar type of, again, this sentiment of when you and again, I say this with full understanding that sort of video is entirely performative for the stock market, for shareholders, as in, and their stock apparently has done very well as a result of these as well. And that's what these are for, is like, of course, there's no reason to doubt us. We are closer than ever to the thing that you want us to reach, even if it's unobtainable or mythical in its
But I've also
definition.
got to ask, you go back, 5-7 years when all of these tech leaders were saying the thing that worries us most is AGI. We have got to put the brakes on this because we have no idea what the risks are going to be. Where are those conversations now? It's all sort of full steam ahead. Let's see who can get there first.
And I want to try to not be cynical, but it's hard to not just say money. Because I mean, again, go back to the origins of OpenAI. I mean, so for people who aren't familiar with like the story of OpenAI didn't start as a traditional Silicon Valley startup, company.
Combined not for profit. Yes.
It was this, and even I think its original origins, it was purely nonprofit. Which again had backers like Elon Musk. Of course, there's drama that was associated with that story, but it was specifically in the aim of, we need to create something that is by nature open, hence the name, that is an open way for people to explore the possibilities, the opportunity, the challenges, the dangers, what have you, around artificial intelligence in response to Google's DeepMind, right, which at the time was the place where these advancements in artificial intelligence were happening. I mean, that's where the origins of what became the large language models came out of. But that was part of that sort of concern or skepticism, or just sort of like, hey, we need to be thoughtful about this. And that was like 2016. So less than 10 years.
In fact, January 2017, I was at the AI Silomar sort of summit where a lot of this was discussed. And so you had Demis Hassabis there, you had Sam there, Elon Musk, and a whole bunch of others. Really trying to flesh this out, because that was the point when people were realizing there is something really serious happening here. But that just seems to be in the dim and distant past now.
And it's funny how fast that I mean, and again, it was November 2022 or whatever when the the surprise of
Yes.
ChatGPT 3 was like, whoa, we've got something.
Right. Yes. Yep.
You know, but yeah, it's fascinating that
Yeah.
how quickly that tune has changed.
It has flipped. Yes.
And, you know, and again, I don't want it to be such a simple answer as, oh, it's just the money.
Yeah.
But it's hard to
but
argue
also,
part of that.
I know. And clearly
now.
the money is there because you look at the billions of dollars being invested, which is unbelievable, but not just private equity. This is governments. Everybody is jumping on the hype train here.
Yeah.
But beyond that, there is this argument that I worry about. And you see this coming out of Meta, you see it coming out of OpenAI and other places where they say AGI could be devastatingly transformative, an existential risk.
Mm-hmm.
Therefore, we have got to be the company that gets there first because we are the responsible ones.
Right. Yeah. Again, show me your receipts.
Right.
You know, but I think this is a huge piece of it too, is, you know, again, there's this disconnect between and we've talked about this before. So what I think I should also do too is I'll try to layer in our previous shows.
Right.
Because we've talked extensively about this as well, of some of those same challenges of, you know, if you invent the crisis to which you're going to solve, right?
Does feel like that, doesn't it?
You know, and a total aside, I do hope people caught that the episode where we heavily layered in lots of Hitchhiker's Guide was also episode number 42.
I didn't notice that.
Oh, you didn't notice?
No.
Oh, that's awesome. I thought we were on the same wavelength there. I was like, yeah, we're going to work at Hitchhikers and not mention
subliminal.
it.
Totally subliminal.
See? Just, you know, it's, you know, the answer to life and everything.
Is Modem Futura.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. No, but you know, again, there's this disconnect between this idea of this technological sprint, and it's like the question, you know, which, you know, I'm asking, other people are asking, but again, thinking about we think about the futures of these things, we collectively as a society who are voting for politicians and lawmakers who are creating regulatory frameworks and all these kind of things. Like, there's a reason we all need to be collectively thinking about these, because it's not one person. It's not a 10-person design of the future. Because if you really look at some of the futures that are being sort of laid out in terms of the scenarios from some of these people that say we have to create AGI because the future is terrible. And all these things, you're like, every one of these people seems to paint this picture of this horrific future to which only if they can reach this product, it'll save us all.
I know.
But I'm like, but if you really claw that back and you're like, so what really is the reason for the rush? Right? I need to get there first. And why do we need to get there first? Because what's the motive?
You're right. And
you know,
of course, there are motives all the way from Elon Musk's plan B. We got to get to Mars because the Earth is going to disappear one day, which is, you know, to give him credit, it's a crazy justification, but at least it's a justification.
Sure.
We've got to go faster because we've got to go faster.
Yeah.
And of course, part of that is the idea of GDP and development and progress. The idea that you've got to be making faster and faster and faster progress as a society, as a species.
Yeah.
Which actually, the only context that makes sense in is the context of a company where your quarterly earnings have always got to be higher than the previous quarter.
Right.
But
which makes no sense in reality.
It's totally made up. It's economic sort of fiction.
Yeah. Well, and in that same, and it's like, you get to the root of it, like that expectation, that the stock market expectation is all speculative.
Yes.
It's whatever you did yesterday does not matter.
Right.
It's what's the potential that you're going to do for me tomorrow?
Right.
And I'm betting on that.
And then of course there is a real side of this, but even that I think raises questions. And I should be very clear here. I am very excited with where AI is going. I think there's unbelievable potential, but at the same time, even if you sort of say, you look at the world at the moment and we've got problems with wars, we've got problems with famine, we've got problems with disease, and then you say AI is going to solve all of this, it's the wrong way of looking at it. You should be looking at other solutions as well. So you look at, poverty, famine, disease. There are other ways of addressing those problems rather than just say one day we're going to have a solve-it-all AI system.
That's right. And I think a big piece of that, I like the way that you kind of set that up, because one of the ways that I've started approaching a lot of these these topics. And one of them, I mean, education, right? That's a big piece, right?
Another perfect example. We're going to solve education with AI.
Yep. And it's like, and again, this takes us back to the conversation we had with Punya a while back too. It's like, that's the wrong way of framing.
Wrong question.
It's how do we solve, like in that, whether it be education or poverty issue or, whatever the social or, technical problem it is, how do we solve that in a world where we're using AI? Right. Like, because again, it's not so, it's not going to be this golden lightning rod that you just wave it and you're like, aha, I do my little, I watch Harry Potter. I mean, I could try a spell with it or whatever. And I'm like, no, it's not going to just transform and magically solve a thing. Yeah. It still is going to require the humans to think about what is the problem, how do we solve it, and applying that amazing artificial intelligent technologies in a world full of that. And how do we think about how can that technology, in a world where that is pervasive and part of the fabric, now how do we solve these problems?
That's right, which then becomes a very human problem. So this framing, and this of course it's what I study, it's what many of our colleagues study, sort of getting a sense of the right questions to ask. Yeah. And a stupid example is, imagine you go to your fridge and there's no milk there. There's an easy solution to that, and there's a hard solution. The technological solutionist side of it is, let's invest in creating a robot that one day will go down the street and buy us some milk so we don't have to do that and put it in the fridge. What a great idea.
Yeah. Get a refrigerator with sensors in it and camera in there that can evaluate
that's right. Completely forgetting the fact that the solution to the immediate problem is walking 5 minutes down the road or taking a car and buying another carton of milk.
Yeah.
And that is the challenge we're facing. People look at the problem and they very self-indulgently say, this is an excuse for me to do all the fun things I want to do, rather than this is how we're going to address the problem.
Yeah, exactly. And I think I may have shared this example before. So I'll do it again anyway. I'll repeat. Repetition can be used intentionally, right?
Especially as you get older.
Right. Here he goes again, telling us the same old stories. But I had heard one time an example of that of using. There was a massive enhancement project for creating basically railway time from a train that was going from, I forget the place. It may have been London to Paris or something like this.
I remember this one.
Right. And so, we're going to spend, I forget what the budget was. It was a lot of money to make that go faster so that people are more happy and satisfied with this trip.
Yes.
You approaching it purely from a deterministic engineering. The only way that this is better is if we make it quantifiably better, shorter, less vibration, things like that. But they never considered the fact of maybe the best solution is just make the experience better. Right. So save the gazillions of dollars to redo the infrastructure because it was maybe good enough. And instead investing in just the whole process to make it, give people free coffee or something. I was going
to say the price for a cup of coffee.
Yeah. Or free Wi-Fi or something. And so suddenly this, because I think that case study in particular was something like, by the time it was finished, they had spent an enormous amount of money. And I think they had shaved off 12 minutes or something. I mean,
and of course, all of this is, this is a word that I hate, but I'm going to use it. It's technological solutionism. The idea that the only future you can see is finding solutions with your own sort of blinkered perspective. And I don't like it because solutions are important. If you've got a problem, you need to find a solution. But it's when you are so blinkered that you don't see two things. First of all, the whole landscape of potential solutions rather than just the one you want. And secondly, you don't realize that all solutions are temporary. There is no absolute solution to a problem because we live in a dynamic world.
That's it. And I think, and I would add to that too, I think I saw, I don't know how recent it was, but there was, of course, some inflammatory tweet by certain electric car manufacturing owners that will remain nameless, claiming that the term or the occupation of a researcher doesn't exist anymore, or shouldn't exist anymore.
I'm going to name and shame. This was, of course, Elon Musk, who basically sort of said, no such thing as a researcher. There's only an engineer, and we've got it all wrong. So scientists, researchers, you have no idea what you're doing because it's all just engineering. And of course, to a scientist, I know that he is completely and utterly wrong,
Yeah.
which is fine. He's allowed to
Yeah.
be wrong. But when you've got a gazillion followers who now believe that engineering is the solution to everything, it doesn't help.
And to that point, that's like, again, that exact approach of like, every problem, I must solve it in the way of an engineer, without, and
to be clear, I as a physicist, I am in awe of engineers. They do things that I could never do.
Absolutely.
On the other hand, engineers are not trained to do things that I do as a scientist.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And it's one of those pieces where, again, this is a classic example of one perspective doesn't solve it, right?
Yes.
Like that, whichever perspective it could be, that's not the right approach. The best approach is to have like,
you need a team.
You need a team
or a village.
Because you eventually, if you do need to create something, you are going to need an engineer to build the things.
Yes, yeah.
Right. But also you need input to think like, what is the actual problem? Is it something that requires us to reconfigure the structure?
This is going to sound awful, but you need the ability to think as well as the ability to do.
It's very,
okay, that's where we definitely hear all the listeners sort of switching off.
That's okay. We can take I will pass all the hate mail to an AI system and say you feel bad about this. Yeah. But that's the key though. Is like to have a a solution or an output that is taking the problem at hand and hopefully, right, mitigating it in a way that takes us closer to a state of flourishing, a better place than we were.
Yep.
It requires more than just one professional perspective of how that thing could be solved.
See, that's exactly
right.
Yes,
and I think the fallacy is when, and it's interesting to look over the last 20 years too, and in terms of like, even just financially, where how much money has been sort of spent in how fast job occupations like programmers and engineers and things like that compared to how they were previously, how they skyrocketed to almost to a point where it seems like, again, in this world of like the Silicon Valley approach, it's like, no. The engineers in Silicon Valley know we can solve it all.
Right.
And, opinions of, sociologists or philosophers is not needed.
The fallacy is propagated. Yes.
Exactly.
Yep.
And just because, and this, I would extend this to not just an individual, but organizations as well. Just because you have been incredibly successful in one particular area does not mean that same set of skills.
Just to balance the scales, I mean, scientists are just as bad as everybody else.
And that is true.
You look at a Nobel Prize winner, and of course, Nobel Prize winners, they are exceptionally good at one narrow area. It doesn't mean they're good at everything, but there is this sort of habit of Nobel Prize winners suddenly feeling as if they could talk about anything. But it's a scientist trait, I find.
Yeah.
Which is where you've got to have that diversity of voices.
Yeah.
So this is sort of what I do with my students, and it's what I practice and what I teach. I always look for the voices that are interesting, illuminating, and creative, and tell me things and give me perspectives that I didn't even know existed.
Yeah.
I mean, even with my students, actually, this is especially with people that haven't even been to university. Sometimes people that haven't even graduated from high school.
Sure.
They can have insights and ways of thinking and ways of seeing and understanding the world that blow your mind.
Oh, absolutely.
And if you close yourself off to those insights, you're not only missing out, but you lack the tools necessary to make sense of the world that we live in.
Absolutely. And even at the most, like even just a pragmatic approach to that is you're setting yourself back, and you might go on this long journey to end up right back where you were had you just had those perspectives included in what you're thinking.
Yes.
No,
It's back to the fridge and the carton of milk example. I mean, a 10-year-old kid has got more nous with how to solve that problem than maybe some of these engineers who would try and build the whole system around. Sort of.
Which is all, the Rube Goldberg machines are a wonderful example of exactly this, right? It's like you can over-engineer and extend these contraptions when really the simple answer was like, let's push the toast down.
Right. Well, where's the fun in that?
But I guess that's the thing. Where for some people, that fun may be in any one of those points along the way.
That's it. Yes. So again, to flip it, I can see sort of quality of life and identity is solving simple problems in complex ways.
Yeah.
There is a lot of generative fun there, but sometimes it's not what's needed.
Yeah, no, absolutely. But that, kind of coming all the way back to Mark Zuckerberg comment.
Yes, sorry, we got sidetracked
it's all kind of coming full circle because it's around this claim that super intelligence is within sight.
Right.
Like, I mean, that is an incredible, and again, that's where I'm like, show me the receipts.
Okay, so I've got to sort of just add a little bit to that.
Yeah.
So this idea of super intelligence is going to solve everything.
Yeah.
So in my career, I've rubbed shoulders with Nobel Prize winners. I remember when I did my PhD at University of Cambridge in the Cavendish labs there, we had our fair share of Nobel Prize winners.
Famous laboratory, by the way, right?
Famous laboratory, and some very famous prize winners there. And I learned at a very early stage, they know squat about most things that matter. So I ended up with a very, very healthy skepticism about super intelligence in humans.
Yeah.
So when people talk about super intelligent machines solving everything, my eyes roll.
Yeah, you're like,
I've seen this in action and it doesn't work.
You might be really good at that one thing. Yeah, no, but it's wild to me because, and again, for people who aren't familiar, and these are terms. And this is another, I feel like there was this growing segment when we diverge into the AI where I'm like, this is what grinds my gears. Right. But one of the challenges is sort of the co-opting of so many of these terms that have existed for decades to explain these, in some ways, these hypothetical milestones of an artificial intelligence, right?
Yes, yeah.
You have your narrow, weak artificial, which is where we are today. The next, and these are, I used to describe these at times too as like epochs, because that's how big of a jump these things are from one another, right?
Yes.
So if you think of all the fancy cool stuff we have today that is very technologically impressive, we use them all day long, that is still weak, narrow by definition, original definition, these very weak, narrow AI tools. The next epoch to that is the AGI term that's been kicked around like it's inevitable, which is artificial general intelligence, which again, that is the point at which, again, basing this off sort of the original sort of working definition, right? That when an artificial system could demonstrate the same level intelligence as a living being. Not necessarily human, but a living creature, which it still cannot do.
We're going to have artificial chicken intelligence.
Right.
Maybe that's where we're heading.
But so even that alone is fraught with we can't even accurately define what makes human intelligence.
That's it, yes.
And all these things.
But this is where, and this is fascinating me for years now. So you look at an AI expert like Stuart Russell, robotics and AI expert, and years ago, he struggled with this definition of what does artificial intelligence mean? And he ended up being very reductionist with this and basically said the only way we can talk about this is machines, and I'm paraphrasing him, but machines that can problem solve with agency. So you give them a problem, and if it's AGI, it can be a general problem. They can work out how to address that problem, and they have the means in order to push the buttons and pull the levers to do that.
Yeah.
So that makes sense, but that's an incredibly narrow definition of intelligence. It's one really small slice of what humans do, and yes, it's powerful, but it doesn't mean you can solve anything.
No. Well, and exactly. And it's and how do you account for all the cultural, the embodiment, all these other, I mean, again,
that's it. Yes,
it's not something that is so simplistic as solve this one math problem or solve this Olympic high school math problem. And that demonstrates an intelligence because that might demonstrate a small fraction.
That's right.
Yes. Or again, the output mimics the same output. And so if they look the same, you could say, well, what's the difference?
It also assumes that every problem is solvable. And yet we know, and this is where you need to talk to people in the humanities and the social sciences, that some problems have solutions, other problems don't.
Yeah, absolutely.
And because the systems are messy and complex. So you look at human society and you look at sort of politics. There are no easy solutions because when you've got multiple people with multiple agendas, multiple sort of ideas of what they want, there is no one minimum or maximum. It's messy.
No, No, and in fact, even in like education and social sciences,
Right, yes.
we even have a direct term for it. They're called wicked problems.
That's right. Yes.
That by their definition, there is no one way you can solve it.
And of course, with wicked problems, that you go to the original definition, a wicked problem was one that as you try and solve it, the problem changes. So no matter how fast you try and find a solution, that immediately instigates a change in the problem.
And that really the approach to wicked problems is like the best you can come off with is, well, I'm a big fan of elephants, so I hate this analogy, but it's like trying to solve a wicked problem is like trying to eat an elephant. You can't do it without, and the only way to do it is one slice at a time.
Or if you're a vegan like Sean, just imagine a great big blob of tofu.
a tofu molded into the shape of an elephant. That I can get behind. Right. But that's part of the challenge is like the most you can do is tackle one chunk of it.
Yes.
Knowing that a solution to that chunk may very well, it could be a solution to a chunk, or it could by its own solution cause other changes that make it
where the system
perpetually
is dynamic. And actually, I like the language of pathways forward. So rather than solutions, you find pathways which by necessity sort of change over time, but at least you know the next few steps, and then you work out what happens next.
And these wicked problems, I mean, I'm going to dangerously try to get my math correct here on this. But an asymptote, right, always approaches the line, but never touches it, right? Yes. And so that's kind of like the idea between like a wicked problem is you can continuously work. It's like anything that is idealized.
There's an even better analogy than that. So you imagine you've got the asymptote, you think that you're getting close to the axis, but actually there's a fog between you and the axis. So when you eventually get to peer through the fog, you realize actually the axis is hundreds of miles away. You've been going in the wrong direction.
And that very well could happen. Right. But that was kind of like this idea too, right? That these problems are incredibly wicked and there is no direct solution.
Yeah.
But again, that's all, and that's just the first, I shouldn't say the first, the second order of epoch of artificial intelligence,
right? Yes,
general,
yes.
Like to be able to do that. And the reason I want to draw this, because we joke about it. You'll hear it if you're doing AI stuff. You'll hear about the paperclip maximizer thought experiment, things like that. Which serves a good purpose to get the brain thinking about stuff. But the whole point of that is like throughout, like I would say the last 30 years up until very recent, till the AGI Cambrian explosion, the thought process about these epochs was narrow artificial intelligence, very helpful, productive, increasing productivity. We see lots of gains in data and analysis, all this stuff, blah, blah, blah. General intelligence, very useful. It can do agentic things like do things for you. And this is where you start to see a lot of these, again, if you go back to the sci-fi stuff, this is when you have her and you have, all these companions and you have all this kind of artificial intelligences sort of commingling with humans. The epoch that has always been labeled super intelligence.
Right, yes.
Is, broadly defined as essentially the time at which the artificial intelligence can surpass any human intelligence whatsoever, to the point which that's not like this, like sort of gradient runaway time. It's like almost an instant exponential.
That's it. Yes.
And this is the place when you think about the people who are raising the existential crises around AI. It's based on this, that once we cross this threshold, we could never go back.
We're no longer in control.
And you've completely lost. Now, as an entire planetary species, we've lost entire control, which would also indicate in terms of like the existential perspective, we've lost any agency to stop anything from happening.
Yes. And so actually coming back
to that is in sight.
Right.
Is just beyond the pale in terms of speaking out of just marketing.
I was writing about this way back in 2018, I think, in my book Films from the Future, and I sort of very, very skeptical about super intelligence, and I still am. But assuming that something like this might happen, this comes back to Sam Altman, because a lot of the arguments are we've got to embed human values and human morality into AI, so when it becomes super intelligent, it is basically subservient to us. It respects who we are. But they say this without even knowing what they're talking about with values and decision-making and things. And there are so many examples where this doesn't work. This is a very silly example, but it's nevertheless an example of intelligence begetting intelligence when you have kids.
Yeah.
All parents would love their kids to obey them and turn out like them and to do exactly what they're told. I don't think it ever happens.
How do you do this even like your dog?
Because the whole definition of an intelligence is that it has its own agency.
That's right.
Yes, you can instill some sort of set of values or a worldview, but at the end of the day, they're their own agent.
That's right. Even you can have positive and negative reinforcement.
Right.
And at the end of the day, it's still an agentic decision of whether or not you're going to do those things or not.
Yeah. So, I think they're important discussions. What will a super intelligent AI be like? But this idea that we can somehow, I'm going to use the word slave, even though it's a difficult one, somehow they're subservient to us or they're slaves to us, is a nonsensical idea.
Oh, yeah.
So then you've got to think about it in a totally different way. But this idea that we've got to move as fast as possible so we are first past the point in superintelligence that obeys us, makes no sense.
It makes no sense. I mean, it falls up. I mean, and this is one of those, again, how do you tell when someone's selling you snake oil, right? Is like the minute you start poking at it, everything just falls apart.
Right. Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
So, I mean, even if, let's say, okay, so hypothetically, we reach a stage at which a AI would be considered on par with, again, a yet to be defined human marker of intelligence. Okay. At that point too, you're like, okay, well, when does is it now a sentient being? Does it not now have?
See, and that's what a lot of people conflate. So I think there's a very big difference between intelligence, consciousness, and sentience.
Yeah.
And of course, people study this. And at the intersection between sort of cognitive science and neurobiology and AI, they both understand these nuances and they deeply grapple with them.
And my question is, like, when you say super intelligence is within sight, I'm like, well, hold on. Because again, we get to this idea of intelligence. Well, is that what makes humans special? Is our intelligence?
Right.
Or is it our mind? How the hell does a mind form? I mean, we don't have a solid roadmap where we can say, oh yeah, look, it's
I know.
Well, it's tick 1, tick 2, tick 3, we're good.
But again, coming back to the whole sort of underlying idea behind this podcast and the center we have here at ASU, the future of being human, this is why the question about what makes us us, what gives us our identity, what gives us our value in a technologically complex world is so important. It's one of the most important questions facing humanity. Of course, there are practical questions around how do we avoid sort of bricking the planet or sort of causing strife through the world. But fundamentally, we need to understand ourselves in a world where technology challenges what we've long assumed means being human.
Absolutely. And I think, that's one thing that is somewhat crazy in some senses, right? Is that question, it's like you just keep asking it, and every week the question becomes more important than ever.
Right. It
right?
absolutely does.
I mean,
yes,
it wasn't that long ago when it was like, oh, well, humans are just humans. We just do our thing. No one can paint like there's no Beethovens in the world.
And then humans can write beautiful prose.
Yeah, they'll never do that.
Machine, tick. Humans can create lovely art. Tick, machine does that.
Yep.
Humans can take sort of photos. Tick, machines have been able to do that forever.
No one can pose music the way.
Yes, yeah.
Tick.
So what is it? So I'm sitting here frustrated because I'm actually, co-writing a book about this at the moment that we can't talk too much about because we're still developing.
Just stay tuned.
But we're really developing some of these ideas about what is the essence of being human and how do you keep hold of that and thrive in an age of AI?
Yeah, and it's really, the thing that's really fascinating about that conversation, and again, this is something, again, as just a thought starter for people to have this question. Next time you're at a coffee with like a good friend or at having a drink or something, you literally ask that question. Like, what does it mean to be human?
Yeah.
Like,
what is it that makes you you?
Because what's really interesting is asking that question with different groups of people, with different individuals, and to hear the richness of how people start responding to that.
That's it.
Because it's not the same. Because you ask 10 people, you might get 10 different answers, right?
Yep.
Which is really interesting.
Yep.
But also then when you play that question, again, across the backdrop of all of this hype nonsense that's going on, that question becomes more and more important because, again, these tech companies, in the way that they are also integrating these tools with or without, sort of like an individual's consent, for example. They're becoming part of the fabric of the infrastructure.
That's it.
They're becoming part of the fabric of, your professional existence, the way that you interact with information, with each other. not understanding sort of like where these boundaries are or how you even feel about them.
Right.
Again, I come back to this issue of turning that little dial one little tick mark at a time until we've reached a place we really do not want to be.
See, that's right. Somebody else is making the decisions for you. But then the beauty is that if you get that crystal clear sense of who you are, what makes you you, you can then work out how you can enhance who you are through these technologies like AI.
Yeah.
So it's not pro or anti-AI. It's how do you use it to make sure that you live the life that fully reflects who you are in society.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And I think we've said it enough times, but maybe it's worth just, I'm like, I do want to say it because you already said it once today, but I'll say it again is, few people get as jazzed and excited and jump to the keyboard as fast as you and I do when something new tool, a new feature, whatever comes out.
Would you like me to admit how much time I spend on ChatGPT and Anthropic's Claude? So it's at the moment, because I'm using them, it's several hours a day.
Yeah.
I do not avoid these tools.
No,
I use them deeply.
And are also like myself, deeply excited about not only what they can do, but where this technology is going.
Mm-hmm.
That is also why I, particularly myself, I'll speak for just myself, why I get so fired up and animated about the hype.
Right.
Because to me, the hype is the danger. Because people who don't know the technology they're going to just hear the hype and they're going to say, we're close to superintelligence because I heard someone say it. And then guess what? That may never come.
Right. Yes.
And so what's going to happen then is in the field of AI has had a long history of springs and winters.
It has.
Right.
Yes.
So like
hype and crash.
Yeah. Breakthroughs that really go, we're going to do it. Because every spring looks the same in the sense that it's like, we're almost there. Right. We're 5 years away.
Then the fall comes.
And then the fall. And then it's
the winter.
And then it could be, these could be months or years or decades of, because it's interesting to listen to some of the more senior AI researchers who were involved in these technologies. When they were getting their graduate degrees and stuff like that, people were like, don't go into artificial intelligence. Are you crazy? It's a dead end job.
Yep.
And that's not wrong from that perspective, 20 years ago.
That's why they're trying to rule the world. They were so damaged at that point. Like, now they're thinking, what sort of, it's going to come back and bite you.
That's right.
That way you dissed me back there.
That's right. Anyone out there who has ever had a major where people are like, oh, good luck getting a job with that is like, just, bide your time. It'll come back around.
The evil mastermind. Yes. Once spurned by society, come back for that.
I should have got it. But that's always one of the things. So I get very defensive about the hype and about the mythic qualities. Because again, that is where the damage is done.
Right.
Because people end up giving up things like the things that make them human. They give those things up either intentionally or maybe even unintentionally because they're not thinking about how these things have impact.
But there's an interesting balance here. So again, sort of thinking at that intersection, which is what we both do between where we are at the moment and the future, you've got to exert your imagination. You've got to be free to imagine how things might play out, what the future might be like. But that again is very different from just selling the hype as if it's reality.
Yeah.
It's like showing Terminator and saying, this is the world as it is at the moment, rather than saying this is a fiction of what might happen.
Yeah. Well, and I think that's a big piece, right? Yes. Is like you can be, and these are part of like the tools when we think about, specific mindsets around like futures thinking and stuff like that, right? It's like, no, it's incredibly powerful to grant yourself the ability to either want or just chase these things down. What would it be like if superintelligence did actually happen? Right. That is a fun, fertile place to think.
Absolutely. Yes,
because it gives you a safe space to start to highlight, well, what if it could do this? Wouldn't that be amazing? Or exactly that, the opening scene of Terminator 2 where just like the metal T100 or whatever crushes the pile of human skulls. You're like, ooh, well, we don't want that. But it gives you a space where you can start to examine these things and then literally going back and say, okay, well, how do we get to that one? How do we stay away from that one?
Different to somebody saying next year we're going to have AGI, give me $1 million.
That's right. Exactly. Because also, and again, keep these things in mind that those futures that are often used along with these hypes, they're very prescriptive, which futurists don't do, right? We create scenarios, but we do not predict the future.
This is what the future is going to be like.
No,
yes.
you're like, here is and with it again, show your receipts is like, here's a scenario, and here is
it's going to be your tagline. You're going to have the T-shirt. Show me your receipts.
Just on my tombstone,
totally will be contextless, sort of wandering around campus. Show me your receipts.
Show me your receipts. Show me your receipts for that, or show your work. Maybe that's a better one. Show your work. But because that's what comes with it is like, well, here are plausible scenarios, and here is how those scenarios.
Yes.
Because again, nothing is set in stone.
Yeah.
Well, I guess maybe some people might believe that, but that's we'll say that for a different show. But it's just fascinating because but having the freedom to want those things to happen, not want those things to happen, but just play in that mind space to really to turn these things over, turn them on their end, envision, you be creative. I mean, this is where we get lots of fodder for all the sci-fi that we love and enjoy is usually that. It's somebody's scenario of how they think the future could be or should be.
Then you bring that back to engaging with different people in different communities. And I so twice in one show calling out films from the future, which I went back and reread chapters of it recently, even though it's a few years old. It is still on point in many areas.
Yeah,
but
maybe more so.
But this is where sort of fiction and imagination and sci-fi, but anything that imagines the future is so powerful in bringing together different people from different backgrounds to discuss about what they're excited about, what they're worried about, what they want, what they don't want, where those pathways are to co-create the sort of futures that they're excited together about.
Yeah.
And that's very, very different from having hype imposed on you.
Yes, completely. Because also, I mean, again, that hype is usually a very specific narrative coming from for a reason, right?
Yes.
Well, if you don't want to end up the skull trampled on, you better buy my product.
That's exactly it. Yes.
And so so oftentimes the narrative that comes from those hypes is actually one of the farthest things from a scenario,
right?
Because they're usually very intentional to trigger an emotional response, fear. I mean, think about it. What motivates people to do stuff, right? It's like
fear. Yeah, it's fear of losing something.
It's the fear of losing something. You can. I mean, sex sells, right? Fear motivates.
Yeah.
You can play on heartstrings. You can trigger people's gut reactions.
So it's either that dopamine hit of wanting something and being satisfied, or that sort of fright reflex.
Yep.
Yes.
I mean, it's, and these trigger very, talking about, being human, right? Does the AI have a fight or flight reflex?
Maybe that's the whole point of building in human values. We've got to make it scared.
That's right. or just becomes very like a
few pain receptors in there.
That's right. Or worse, right? It doesn't have the flight. It has the fight. And you're like, ChatGPT, please tell me. And it's just like, I'm going to tell you something, pal. Like, oh no. That'd be actually interesting.
Yeah. Oh goodness me. Yes.
Yeah. I think we have some of those.
So this is actually building on the episode that would have aired before this one with Sean Dudley and biohybrids. So when does somebody say that to make an AI truly human, we've got to have a biological component? So it's got sort of all of those sort of things that lead to the fight or fright response.
Yeah.
So that little amygdala in there, sort of pulsating inside it. So we think we can control it through fear, but of course that also triggers a bunch of other things.
Well, and I'm just sitting here going, okay, so you have a artificial intelligent creature. Yes. That has, some sort of hydraulic joints and pressure with, squishy bits on the outside that now is subjected to the chemical responses in our brain.
Right.
What could possibly go wrong
with that? Nobody's ever done that in science fiction before, have they?
No, my goodness. But it's funny because, going back to that episode, the minute we start talking about synthetically creating like the structure and the sinew and the muscles. My brain, I mentioned it went right to that opening sequence of the HBO's Westworld, which you haven't seen?
I've not seen the series. Of course I've seen the movie.
The movies and know the premise.
Yeah.
But that in that show again, it kind of lost it on me, but the first couple of seasons are quite good.
Yep.
But it's the same, this idea of, and even from that perspective, no spoilers, but you have these essentially humanoid artificial intelligent entities. I don't even know how to correctly call them. But then that's that whole bit is they're assumed to be the play toys of this fantasy world that would just, and, so of course it's set in sort of this grisly Wild West thing where anything goes. So it's like very violent and things. So, but of course they're poised as, these are just like, video game characters in the real flesh. You can, shoot them, hurt them, kill them, do whatever. It's not. But what if there's a memory? And then, and that's where, of course, it plays like over time, this thing builds up, and
there are the unintended consequences of putting those little chemical hormonal sort of circuits within them.
That's it. And I mean, even for people, and to say where this also can play in an area that is based in some truth too, is like with all these machines, and you may know this if you have a computer at home, right? Or especially if it's an older one. Over time, you have a lot of things called memory leaks that happen, right? So even in these closed systems, we think, these are just binary systems. We just on and off. There are still times and situations where you have memory leaks that go from that aren't supposed to be in one location that end up in a location.
They move across.
And there are these things that are, it's in many ways, it's the complexities of these large systems.
That's it with emergent properties.
Yep. Or you have things, there's a great term called bit rot as well. These things that happen that sort of degrade over, and you're like, we don't really know why it happens, but it does. And there's,
I think that's what my ChatGPT was doing earlier this week. Bit rot.
I think there was a global pandemic of bit rot.
There was, yes.
Oh goodness.
But you're right. But it leads to the unpredictability of these deeply complex systems.
Yeah.
But here's the interesting thing: when you look at sort of degradation and unpredictability, 99 times out of 100, it leads to a reduction in performance, but in unpredictable ways. So you have failure modes that are very hard to predict. But that 1 time in 100, or probably 1 time in a million, it leads to an emergent property, which actually changes things possibly in a beneficial way, but certainly in an unexpected way. So then you have to think about how you deal with that.
Yeah, no, exactly. And again, I just think about this coming all the way back to super intelligence is within sight. So, the good news is, if that is true, we don't have to worry about that.
Why?
We'll let the super intelligence figure it out.
Sort it out.
We'll let them sort it out. We can just take a break. We can just go to the beach. assuming we're allowed to.
Okay. So how are you going to get to the beach when superintelligence controls everything?
Oh, right. They're not going to let us drive.
Is there going to be a beach there?
Yes.
Yeah.
Right. They're not going to let us drive. We're too dangerous. I don't know.
Welcome to the future.
That's it. Buy my product. And we'll all be safe.
Anyway, so where does that leave us? We started off with Sam Altman. We've come all the way back to superintelligence on a long and windy journey. And
I've got one more thing I'd like to throw, but I'm like, we'll toss this out and then maybe we can come back to it. But because that is also the issue because we talked a little bit too earlier about just the way that we use it. Well, not directly, but we use a lot. And that does raise this issue of reliability.
So we should talk a little bit about this because this is on my mind a lot at the moment.
Same.
So the challenge to me, and I think to a lot of people, is you've got these systems, and we talk about ChatGPT from OpenAI, but of course you've got Gemini, you've got Claude, you've got a whole bunch of them.
Yeah.
And they're incredibly powerful. And as a result, people are beginning to build systems on them or workflows on them. They're beginning to rely on them day in, day out. Even me in my own work.
Yeah, so I'm guilty of that as well.
I come to it and I expect the system to behave the same as it did yesterday in a predictable way. But because they're all developing systems, they can change without you knowing what happened. So this happened to me earlier this week. I mentioned ChatGPT using O3 Pro model, the top model, to do a series of tasks where we've been working on these for months, and every day I come to it, I need it to do the same thing. On Monday, it was behaving completely differently and completely erratically. I have no idea why. There's no reliability whatsoever.
I think I had a good laugh. I'm going to pull it up. I had a good laugh because you had mentioned that. And I was like, I was relieved. I thought it was just me.
Yeah.
Because same thing.
And it doesn't matter if you're just tinkering or playing, but if what you do relies on you being able to know exactly what's going to come out of that system, you can't afford to invest in a system that can do anything.
And so this is I think that exact, if it was all under the guise of experimentation, you're like, okay, that's fine.
Yep.
But one of the challenges, and I think this has been an ongoing challenge for a platform like OpenAI that has, because, again, they're under pressure
Right.
Again, from the powers that be that they are beholden to always be doing what's next, what's more, jokingly were talking about last time too. It's like with agent mode, and then there was like the consulting business, and even now between then they launched study mode,
right,
which is yet another variant.
Yes.
But like even now, so when I load up, I'm in ChatGPT at the moment. There is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. There's 8 models
that
available
you can choose from. Yes.
that I can choose from that are all, I mean, the descriptions are great for multitasks, advanced reasoning, best at reasoning. So is great or best better? Fastest at reasoning, great at coding and reasoning. I'm like, well, wait a minute. So which one am I supposed to use? And then of course you go in them, and then under the tools, you have additional options like agent mode, deep research, study and learn, and all these kind of things. So there's a complexity problem there of also trying to figure out when I'm doing a task, which lever should I be pulling to get the best result. But as you mentioned, I think one of the biggest challenges, and I think in the short term, this is going to be a potential massive weakness with not just OpenAI's tools, but any of them, is exactly to your point, is if you are relying on it for either there is an underlying API for something you've built,
right. Yes.
An app, another data
Perfect
service.
example. In ChatGPT, you create a bot.
A GPT.
A GPT, which you then distribute to others. So they have this version of ChatGPT that they use for specific things. And they assume that it's going to work. But OpenAI can change something in the underlying architecture, and all of a sudden that stops working, or it starts giving you stuff which is totally nonsensical. You have no control over that. You don't even know if it's happened or not.
Yeah. And that's the biggest issue is I'm like, what's interesting about this is, again, and I would probably assume, and I may be completely off base, but I would assume it is also tied to that. Let's just keep, when you're sprinting.
That's it. Yes.
Because, if you compare it to, traditional software, for example, that you would use in a like productivity software, whether that be something in media creation or just word processing, right? You have these things that are called like SLAs, a service level agreement,
right?
Which is basically like, if you're buying our service, we guarantee a 99.999% uptime. With this kind of system, you don't have that at all.
That's it.
And one of the challenges is you start to become reliant on, I run transcripts. This was a funny one. Modem Futura. I run our recorded audio through a Whisper, which is the model of Whisper is an OpenAI product, to pull out the transcript from these kind of things. Monday, I did it, and it was labeling us Chris and Luke for some reason. And I'm like, I'm nothing against a Chris or a Luke, but I'm like, neither one of them is Andrew and Sean.
Which is funny, but now imagine you're in a situation where you're running medical records through, and you have to make split-second decisions on what you get back.
Or and it's like, and you can say like, well, it's all experimental, but you're like, well, we pay, this is it's called Pro. Is a professional version, a professional license, but it's not I think where I was sharing this earlier. It's not that it changes. It's that you're not informed that there is going to be a change. There is a change, and there's no way to roll back to, or at least not easily.
It's somebody just tweaks sort of part of the underlying prompt somewhere, because they think that it works better one way or another, and it changes everything. You can't go back.
And it has ripple effects. And then you're left in a situation where you sort of have created a workflow for these things. And I mean, part of that is the nature of an LLM, which is, unpredictable to a certain extent. But you have, when you've sort of arranged a workflow to get things that you need, and then all of a sudden it's giving you stuff that's way off base.
Even think about education. So there is this massive push at the moment to bring AI systems into the classroom and into the hands of instructors. To the extent that we're encouraged to rely on these with how we teach, how we develop our classes, the assignments that we give, the ways that students interact with our material, which is all great. But what happens if those behave completely differently on a Tuesday than they did the previous Thursday when you gave the students the assignments? How do you navigate that level of unpredictability? You're in a classroom where the objective is not for students to play, but for students to actually learn against specific objectives.
You're giving Luke and Chris bad grades for...
Right, yes. Because the students say, it wasn't me, it was Luke.
Man, I don't know. It was Luke. Blame Luke.
But these are all questions we should be grappling with, as well as saying, I'm going to use use education as the example
Sure.
again, as well as saying, how do we really sort of understand the benefits of these systems so students learn better and learn more, maybe learn faster, but we enhance the educational system.
Yeah.
We should also be asking, where are the dangers? Where are the challenges? Where are the difficulties? Where are the things that are going to lead to this taking us to a bad place rather than a good place? And how do we begin to navigate around that? If you're not asking those questions, you're doing everybody within the profession a disservice.
Yep, absolutely. And just like we talked about this 2 episodes ago too,
Mm-hmm.
this is what happens then when you are using these tools in a professional setting. The output ends up costing more time and effort,
Right.
because the reliability or the confidence in the reliability is gone.
That's right.
Shaken or gone completely.
So now let's come full circle as we wrap up. So you've got this idea of unreliability, some intern somewhere tweaking part of the fine tuning and everything goes to pot, but now you've got super intelligence. What happens when super intelligence has a bad day randomly?
Yeah. Well, right. We've seen, and I'm just going to jokingly, right? We've seen examples of these like vibe coding platforms deleting entire company databases on accident without permission and all this kind of stuff. And that's a narrow AI, you know?
Yes,
so,
yeah. So, okay, to finish off, we've got to go back to the Hitchhiker's Guide and serious cybernetics, because this absolutely has serious cybernetics vibes.
It does.
The idea of a company that came out with these automated systems, these robots, these AIs, where they played around and tweaked so much that they were a nightmare.
yeah. So good. So good. And then, yeah.
Yeah, and the quote is, first against the wall come the revolution.
I think and that's how we end an episode of Modem Futura, I think.
That is indeed.
That's it. Yeah, no, this has been just a super fun conversation. And today, again, because it's summer and these things we're in a very interesting time right now too, because these between the AI action plan, the Stargate thing, all of the announcements coming out of these platforms, I mean, things are just moving and crisscrossing
Very, very
so
fast.
fast. That it is fascinating. And so it's always fun just to be like, all right, what's happening right now?
Yeah, in a few weeks, the jeans will go on, the shorts will come off, the black t-shirt will come on, and we'll get more serious again.
That's it. But until then, we can enjoy. We're still going to enjoy
summer. Yes,
that's right. The summertime. So Andrew, thank you. This has been just an absolute pleasure.
Agreed, Sean. Yes, more summer vibes.
And yeah, so thank you everyone for listening. And again, just another shout out and call to, again, if you are enjoying the show, please rate and review and share with my friends and ask people, what does it mean to be human? Because that's a wonderful question and a great way to start an icebreaker. Also, either that or you'll be labeled like, oh, who's that guy?
Right.
Keeps asking everybody about being human. Is he a robot? I don't know. But anyway, yeah. So thank you. We'll see everybody on the next episode of Modem Futura. Thanks.
Demodulating signal.
Modem Futura is a production of the Future of Being Human initiative at Arizona State University. Be sure to subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen to your favorite shows. To learn more about the Future of Being Human initiative and all of our other projects, please visit us on the web at futureofbeinghuman.asu.edu.
End transmission.